we have two pros with us today to talk about solving the challenges of goal setting. Both very successful public relations leaders in our industry. They have a ton of great experience. They've, I don't know, if ever I have a problem and need help with how to be more organized or ways I can do things more efficiently, these are two ladies that I always call. So I'm really excited to have Shelia Grobosky and Kenna Rathai here with us today. I'm going to start off and just let them introduce themselves in their talk today. But we'll spend this first part of our conversation with them going through a few slides and giving you some tips and ideas that they've learned over the years. But please keep track of questions. Feel free to open up the chat part of Zoom here so you can ask questions, and we'll be happy to monitor those and get asked at some point. But it's supposed to be a conversation. And so one of the things that as we move into 2019 that we really want to work on is making sure that you as an audience feel engaged and comfortable to ask questions, because we're doing this for you guys and we want to make sure that these coffee and collaborations are beneficial for your time. So we do stick to 45 minutes, and so we'll cut them off. And if you have any other follow-ups, I'm sure they'd be happy to answer via email or a phone call later. So with that, are there any other announcements you have, Angie, for us, or you good? Okay. All right. Well, welcome, ladies.
Thank you, Jennifer. I'll get started here. I'm Shelia Grobosky, and I'm the Public Relations Coordinator for Biozyme Incorporated. We're an animal health and nutrition company based out of St. Joseph, Missouri. I'm fortunate, though, that I get to work from my home office in Alexis, Illinois. And today I'm coming to you from Denver, Colorado at the lovely Holiday Inn out here at the National Western Stock Show. I've been in ag communications and event planning for about 23 years now, worked at the American Angus Association for the bulk of my career, the Illinois Beef Association, did a little stint in freelancing, and I've always enjoyed public relations work. Writing is my primary love, and just glad to be able to work from home most days and work for the company that I do right now with Biozyme. So I'll let Kenna introduce herself.
Thanks, Sheila. Kenna Rathai. I'm a PR director at Broadhead, which is an agency in Minneapolis. And like Sheila, I actually work from my home as well in Northeast Illinois. I've been in ag communications my entire career, and mostly years in agency work, but also I freelanced for about 10 years doing PR consultancy and technical writing. So I have served in PR and account service and technical writing and media relations roles. All right, so we're gonna get started here. So I didn't make these up. These are the actual challenges that always come up in studies on why people have a hard time with setting goals. You know, you don't know where to start. All of us have a problem with procrastination. You have unrealistic expectations. You know, some goals we set are just never going to be met. Maybe there's a lack of commitment or motivation. There's fear of failure. You know, maybe you don't really believe that you can actually get it done. And then there's obstacles that come along the way. Things that, you know, just pop up and you don't know how to deal with them. You don't know how to get through them. You don't know how to adjust your goal. So we're gonna take you through our thoughts as it relates to two major ways we think we can solve a lot of these challenges. What's your process? And then how do you keep yourself accountable? And we'll go through each one as it relates to both work and personal, because I think sometimes we go about them very different ways. And then we'll open up for questions. So I'm gonna hand it off to Sheila to start about her process for setting goals at work.
Thank you, Kenna. Well, I'm very fortunate that I have a great marketing team that I work with. And we, although we are spread across about 5 different states, we do work together on setting our goals as a marketing team and a company. We meet monthly, we meet quarterly, and we meet annually to establish our goals. And we set our goals based on those same timelines, monthly, quarterly, and annually. A lot of our marketing goals align with our sales goals. So we work with our sales team at the company to make sure that we are helping spread our message to align with the sales team. We are a team. When we're setting our goals, we think about team goals, but we also have individual goals. So we think about what do I want to do as a public relations professional to help the marketing team as a whole. I think it's really important to have timelines. Timelines pretty much rule my world in the professional world. I always kind of joked when I was in school and college and working some internships that I could never work for a magazine or a weekly publication because of the timelines and all the deadlines and the regular deadlines. And actually come to find out, I'm probably ruled more by weekly deadlines and weekly timelines and monthly deadlines than I might have been if I was working for a regular publication that comes out on a regular basis. So it's kind of a funny thing that you have to be careful what you say or what you wish for, because things come back to haunt you. But timelines and calendars are huge when I set my goals. And I think Kenna might talk about SMART goals later on, but the timeliness and being able to measure goals are very, very important at my workplace. And I'll talk about how I keep those accountable later on. But I do use a calendar. I use my Outlook calendar, and I use a still old-fashioned paper calendar. I like my big monthly view desk calendar that I can see just at a glance, because every Friday I will write down my goals for the next week, whether that's which days I'm going to distribute which press releases. And some people might call that a to-do list, but I still think those are goals because I want to see those get accomplished. So not only do we set goals then as a team, but then I also have personal goals as a one-person PR department within our marketing team. I have goals as far as working with certain publications throughout the year, getting into certain publications, or working to build relationships with certain editors, or getting certain stories written, or just having certain events. So I think it's important to work with your big group of people, whether it is a team you're involved with at work, but it's also important to have those personal, professional goals as well. Kenna?
All right. Well, make sure I can. There we go. Thanks, Sheila. Well, similar to what you had mentioned, for the accounts I work on, we typically plan on an annual basis. So we work with our clients to determine what their objectives and strategies are, and then what their goals are for the year. So we brainstorm tactics that can help them get there. So in the end, it's a roadmap of what we'll work on throughout the year. We also develop content calendars based on those goals. So content can include anything from articles and audio and print news releases, social media posts, videos, all of that content. And I start by plugging the knowns into a spreadsheet. So what topics do we know we want to talk about at certain times of the year? What activities do we know we want to do? And then I brainstorm with other team members to help fill in those gaps and fine tune the timing. And sometimes we even break this up, if annual planning is just too hard for your company or your clients, or even your personal work goals, we look at it by quarter instead. And I mentioned timing. I slice and dice that content calendar several different ways. And we have tabs for 3 things that I think are helpful. By product. Some of our clients have multiple brands or products, so you can get a quick glance at what's going on for any specific product. By type of content, so you can easily see which brands get a video this year. How many articles do each get? Is that the right balance, the right mix? And then adjust from there. It's all about adjusting your goals too as you go. And then by month, and then so we have a traditional calendar view as well. And speaking about timing, it helps to develop detailed timelines for each project, like Sheila mentioned. And this feeds into the goals you have to do, and then ones that you want to do that maybe aren't such a priority. Short and long term, I also want to touch on the fact that setting goals can come in a lot of different forms. We can all do it on a daily or weekly basis too, not just annually. Sheila mentioned that your to-do list that's your goals. If you think about it that way, it's a little bit different. So I have a notes app on my laptop, and each of my clients and volunteer work has its own tab with ongoing tasks. It's a goal list that I continually add to and delete when things are complete. So from that list, I actually pull a daily to-do list. So it's a mix of long-term and short-term goals. And then I also try to set longer-term goals for work. You know, they're not necessarily on my to-do list, but more of what do I want to accomplish in my career in the next 3 months, 6 months, 12 months. Sometimes you might have a system at your work that's a performance reviews type of system where you have to set goals. Those are when you can think a little bit longer term as well. All right, so I think I keep going. We're going to move into our process for setting personal goals, and these can be more fun, obviously. I think it's a really fun exercise to just sit down and write down anything and everything you'd love to do in the next 6 to 12 months. You can call this vomiting ideas or ideating or brainstorming, and then go back and look at the list to see what your commitment is going to be. You know, you don't want to set yourself up for failure necessarily. You want to make sure that it's something that you want to do and have interest in. And that's a big thing. You know, when I think about my goals and making that list and then reviewing it, I always ask myself, what are my interests? What's the rationale behind choosing it as a goal? You know, is there a strong enough motivation to do it? It's got to be something I really want to do. And I also think through I call them healthy habits that I can either take up, or bad ones I can quit. And again, don't set yourself up to fail by making them so far beyond what's attainable. And as far as healthy habits go, I can give you an example. I have 3 nieces who live across the yard or field from me, and they were starting to get into sports and activities. They were at that age. And I realized that because most of their games are at 4:30 p.m., that's during my workday. So I wasn't really making it to any of them. And I really felt like I was missing out. So I made it a goal to get to at least 1 event per season for each kid. And so I had motivation. I wanted it to be part of my nieces' lives. I made it attainable. You know, one game per season was doable if I scheduled my work correctly. And then I consider that a new healthy habit. Those don't always have to be about physical health. So those are some of my processes. I'll shoot it over to Sheila so she can talk about hers.
I think personal goals are something, you know, my parents instilled in me at a young age. I think even being in 4-H, I would cut out pictures when I was a young kid and post out of magazines and post those on the refrigerator. Those would be my goals. And so I think personal goals are something that have been important to me my whole life and have carried on into my professional career. But for me, I call them my 3 M's. They've got to be measurable. Like Kenna said, you need to make sure that you can attain them. And to me, that means I have to be able to measure them. So I'm not one to set a big lofty list of New Year's resolutions that I'm going to get to the gym 3 times a week, because I know I'm not going to get to the gym 3 times a week. That's not me, but I am going to be able to do something that is more measurable. So for me, the last couple years, I have picked a word of the year that has been more my focus versus setting lofty, immeasurable goals. And for instance, in 2019, my word is gratitude. So I've been trying to show gratitude to others, gratitude to perfect strangers, gratitude to my friends and family. I have a 3-year-old at home, so mom life is very important to me. And I think sometimes when you're working from home, your homework balance gets a little out of whack. You know, it's pretty disheartening when a few times when you are working from home and your 3-year-old staying home from preschool that day, and she says, Mom, just go to your office and work, because that kind of hits you right in the heart that maybe you do spend a little too much time in the office, and maybe you can take a half hour out of your day to play in the blanket fort in the living room and just be a mom and be there and be present. So that's one of my goals, is really to enjoy these little moments, because they're not going to be 3 forever, and there's going to be a time when she doesn't want me in her life. So to be, that's really important, is like Kenna mentioned with her nieces, to be there, you know, because that is important. And then just to take time for myself. I got married late in life. I became a parent late in life, and I became very independent all those first 40 years of my life. So it's hard to sometimes remember that I was an individual and not just a wife and mom and a worker. So sometimes you just have to remember that it's okay to take a half a day to run to big town close by when you're in a remote little area and get a pedicure, or just go to the grocery store by yourself, because those are fun things too. And so, you know, setting goals for yourself, they change over time. I remember when my goals were to travel somewhere new and exotic once a year. But as your life changes, your goals changes. So now my exotic trip is a trip to the Target in Galesburg. So I think next we're going to talk about how we keep ourselves accountable on our goals.
All right. And like I mentioned, we're going to do work and personal goals. So Sheila, take it away for work.
Okay. So I think keeping ourselves accountable is just as important as setting our goals. You know, when you're setting goals, if you don't keep yourself accountable, goals are just something that floats away. And I guess that's why on my personal goals, I don't set something lofty goals that I know aren't going to work, or New Year's resolutions that aren't going to work for me. So when it comes to work goals, and I really give credit to my coworkers, for they are really good at keeping us accountable. And I think part of that is because we don't share an office, and we are spread out so far across 4 or 5 different states that we have to do so much online and to keep ourselves accountable. But we are very big on keeping track of what we call monthly metrics. You know, if we send out a press release and it goes to XYZ publications, and we make sure we follow up with those publications and see how often it is picked up, or how often our company brands are mentioned, and we just follow up with that. See how many website clicks we get. We are very big on just measuring all of those types of metrics. So one of the software programs that really keeps me accountable with my goals is Asana. I know some of you probably use that or are familiar with that. If you're not familiar, it's basically an online tasking program, or that's what we use it for. But we all have our basically our channels that are set up in it that we can task our projects in, and we can follow up with each other on that. And that is just really what keeps me going. It's what I look at every morning when I first start out my day. Okay, this is what I was absolutely due today. This is what I need to do. And that's also what I look at every Friday to build my next week's goal list or to-do list. And then I'm very big on feedback. You know, I talk to editors, I talk to other professionals. It's kind of challenging sometimes when you're trying to promote your own brand, but you also want to help other editors out and provide them editorial content. So it's nice to be able to talk to editors. And I think the great thing about our LPC world and communications world is that you're not just working with professionals, you're working with other people that are your friends, and you can call each other up and say, hey, what did you think about this press release? Or you can call somebody and say, hey, I noticed that you never run our press releases, but why is that? And maybe their publication just doesn't flat out run press releases, but maybe they can give you other ideas. Or even my own supervisor at work, you think you're writing some great headlines, and then you get an edit back and says, hey, you really need to be more bold with your headlines. I don't ever take that as criticism. I take that as constructive critiques, and that's just going to help me meet my goals better. So that's just a few of the ways that I help track my goals and keep myself accountable at work. Kenna?
Sure. Thanks, Sheila. Well, I've been to a lot of time management seminars. And one thing that stuck with me that I still do is when a presenter talked about, he called it surveying your landscape. It's really taking stock of your goals and to-do lists on a regular basis. So for short-term work goals, it could be 3 times a day. It could be when you first get to the office, a quick look at lunchtime, and then again before you shut down for the day. And I ask myself, okay, am I at where I wanted to be during those times of the day? If not, what do I need to do to get there in the next few hours? And it's amazing how much that helps, especially for short-term goals like your daily to-do lists. If it's a longer-term goal, choose check-in points that are meaningful to you. Maybe the easy one is the first day of the month. Okay, if you have that, if you're looking at those 30, 60, 90-day goals, even 6 months out, when are you going to look at those? Those can fall down to the very bottom of your priority list very easily. So set something that's meaningful for you. If it's not the first day of the month, maybe it's on holidays, or maybe it's your family members' birthdays. Something as simple as that it's always going to trigger you to take a look and have check-in points. And I don't know if any of my team members are listening, but they know that I am obsessive when it comes to Google Sheets and SharePoint documents. Those cloud-based tools are awesome. They allow everyone to be on the same page, literally. Everyone can contribute in real time. Others can check on the status of goals and tasks at any point in the week and be pretty confident that they know what's going on. And it's very beneficial when more people than just me are working on the same goals. It's where we keep detailed timelines, and that's where we flag projects that are in the 30, 60, and 90-day windows of when things need to be completed. So it's nothing complicated. It's just formatting and shading, just like an Excel spreadsheet. But the key to organizing it is just whatever makes sense to you. It doesn't have to be real formal, like I said. Make it your own. And then make sure that everyone who needs to be on board with it is, and talk through how you'll use it and how often it should be updated. So Sheila, you mentioned Asana or Asana. We also have a program called Workfront that we just started using recently. Very similar. It's a lot of where our project management happens. It's taking things off email and getting them in one system. We look at proofs on there. We check updates and deadlines and share documents and things like that as well. So very, very similar. Okay, so now on to the personal goals and how to stay accountable. I mentioned earlier, when I think about my interests and what personal goals I want to see happen, and what I set is, it's got to be something that's truly worth it to me and that I can commit so I don't set myself up to fail. So some goals, you need to sacrifice something in order to make it happen. There's that pain, but I need to have that strong motivation behind it to commit. So like Sheila, I hate exercising. That is way too much pain for not enough gain for me. So while I consider the benefits and I do it every so often, I'm not going to make it an actionable personal goal for me. It's just not something that I'm going to be able to be accountable to. But the niece getting to their games once a season, that I can do. Something I think that's important as well is to tell someone else your goal. Don't keep it to yourself. That's part of that buddy system. And sometimes you can actually be accountable to each other. if you have the same goal, like an exercise buddy. That's not obviously going to be me or Sheila, but you know, something like that where you either do it together or at least tell them. I bought a book over the holidays that's not exactly light reading, but I told some of my family members about it, and some of them want to read it too. So that encourages me to get through it, to work through it, to get the goal done of reading that book so I can pass it on. And then Sheila mentioned these SMART goals. You may have heard of that. It stands for specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and timing, I think. So earlier I talked about making this big list of things you want to do. And so I go through that list, you know, and then I apply that SMART theory. So I write next to each one more specific details. How I'm going to measure it. Do I think it's attainable or not? Is it relevant? How am I going to use it in my daily life? And then timing for it. So then you can review that list and figure out which goals are a higher priority and that I'm confident actually match that criteria, and then which ones should just be trashed. So that's kind of how I look at accountability for personal goals, which sometimes is a little different than work goals. Sometimes it's the same. I'll pass it back to Sheila.
Yeah, I keep my personal goals accountable a lot of the same way that Kenna does, as far as measuring them quarterly. I would say that I follow that SMART method quite a bit too. When I say I measure them quarterly, it kind of goes back to what Kenna said when she was talking about surveying the landscape. And I break my work day and my personal day into quarters. And some people might kind of laugh at that, but I kind of break my day into like early in the morning till 10 o'clock, and then 10 o'clock till 1 o'clock, 1 o'clock till mid-afternoon, and then mid-afternoon till later in the day. Especially working from home, I can just sit on my computer at my desk all day long and be mesmerized. And I've found that I need to get up every quarter just to stretch, whether it's go throw in a load of laundry or just go check the mail, or just to get up and walk for 5 minutes, because otherwise you just get stagnant there. So my days are broken to quarterly and my years are broken to quarterly. And that's kind of when I measure my personal goals. You know, I have a spring anniversary, a summer birthday. My husband has a fall birthday. So those are when I kind of look at my personal goals and make sure that I have done something for myself each of those seasons of the year. As far as making sure that I'm happy, I think keeping yourself happy, and I talked about the me time when I'm setting my goals. Am I happy when I'm with myself? That's how I make sure I'm accountable with my personal goals. And then Kenna talked about the buddy system. I think I have my little tribe of friends that I share my goals with, or that help keep me accountable in life. You know, you've got to share your goals with somebody, and you don't have to share absolutely everything with everybody. But I think if you do have an accountability partner, a buddy system, a friend that you share what you're trying to accomplish with, it really helps to have that person or a group of friends, or even your spouse or a sister or somebody that can say, hey, have you read that book? Or have you taken personal time for yourself this month? Just to make sure that you are accountable, because sometimes if you just write down your list of goals, or if you just keep them in your head, it doesn't always get accomplished. So I think having that person, your tribe, your buddy, it really helps with keeping accountable on a personal level, where you don't really have your work team or work people, coworkers to help you when you're doing personal goals. So I think that kind of wraps up how the challenges of setting goals. It is challenging. It takes time away from your productivity of your day, but we feel that it's important to be productive. You've got to have goals. You've got to understand where you're going and how you're going to get there. We would open it up to questions at this time if anybody has any. I know there's a chat screen there. Jennifer kind of monitors that. If anybody has questions, you can type them in there. You can unmute yourself and ask them. We would welcome any questions now, or if you think of something. I know Kenna and I are both on social media, and we probably could add our email addresses there too if you add questions later.
Yep. We'll leave it open for a minute or two.
Yep.
Well, this is Jennifer, and I was just going to say that I appreciate your point at the end about how setting goals and making time for that takes away time from the other things that you're doing, from the day-to-day grind. And I think one of my challenges right now in starting a new job and taking on a new role is allowing myself that space to kind of strategize and dream and plan, because I'm trying to like wrap my head around, you know, all the day-to-day grind. So yeah, I mean, I know you talked about it, but are there any other suggestions or thoughts on how you know, maybe when you take that in your day, like what time of the day do you stop to do that, or any other thoughts, I guess, on the timing?
Sure. I think that whole surveying your landscape would work really well for you, Jennifer. And it doesn't have to be 3 times a day. You know, if that just seems way too overwhelming, maybe it's before you shut down, like literally just keep your laptop open or open it back up just before you go to bed at night. So you're not surprised in the morning. So you feel a little bit more confident in your day the next day. That's more of a daily way to do it. You know, you're not going to do work right before you go to bed. It's just taking stock of what goals did you have that you missed, what has to be done the next day. So you are prepared when you get up and sit down at your desk.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. Now, Cindy also asked, help me understand how you stay accountable to your goals.
You know, if you're trying to stay accountable to your goals, if they're written down, you can go back and look at those goals. You know, if you look at them once a month, if you look at them weekly, if, you know, like Kenna said with Jennifer and setting goals, before you shut down once a day, if you want to look at them. I look at my goals every Friday just to see what I've accomplished, what I can check off my list, and what I have to you know, establish for the next week. As far as staying accountable, you know, it's nice to be able to just be able to, if it's written down, you can see it and measure it. And I think that's nice.
Another thing,
accountable.
Another thing to keep in mind is, Shelia, you mentioned writing it down, and for a while there, I had a planner over here, and I had stuff on my laptop, and I had stuff on a home calendar, and I had things on little Post-it notes, and I realized that was not working at all, because I would not be able to find things, and I would be like, oh, what is that phone number that I have to call, or whatever it may be. And so try to consolidate where you keep your goals too, whether that be, you know, in a planner and on your laptop somewhere. You know, at least try and narrow it down to one online and one print area. I think that can help make you accountable as well.
You mean sticky notes aren't a good method, Kenna?
If that's all you use, yes.
I find that, like, in the idea, like the way the pace is, I'm grabbing sticky notes and I laugh because Dan is like, what is wrong with your desk? But maybe I'm putting it on your laptop. So I think I might do that today. That's a great idea. Casey Brown asked another question. Do you ever use rewards as carrots to reach goals? Could you give some examples?
Yes. Yes, rewards, little rewards are a big thing. I just actually talked about this with my husband the other day. And that comes back to my procrastination problem, which I am a procrastinator. I think a lot of people are by nature. So I sometimes have a hard time just sitting down and, like, say it's an article that I'm writing. We're all distracted. That's the way we as consumers are these days. It's just hard to get away from that. So I will set little rewards for myself. Like, okay, if I get through reading this tech paper and writing a headline, I'm going to go down and get another cup of tea. Or I am going to go put a little laundry in. Or if you're at a work office space, maybe it's, I'm going to go to the kitchen area and get a cup of coffee or a treat. So it doesn't have to be big rewards, but little step rewards along the way are a huge thing to do. I love that idea.
Yeah, I do the same thing. I'll be like, I am not going to eat lunch until I get this story written. I mean, it's my incentive, you know.
Or even check social media.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not going to get on Facebook until I finish this task. Really hard to do.
You guys are so impressive.
Not really.
No, I think those are really great ideas. Does anybody else have any other questions? Or any suggestions on goal setting that you'd like to share that you've found success with? I'm so bad at the awkward silence. It's not my thing. I know you guys know that.
Well,
do you guys want to throw your...
oh, go ahead. They may some time in their day to go and their lists.
You got a little wonky there. I couldn't hear you very well.
I was just saying we can give them some extra time in their day today to go check their goals and to-do lists.
Love it. Well, if you guys have any questions for our illustrious speakers, please don't hesitate to reach out to them. I know they'd be happy to help. And Angie will get that video from today's chat posted on social. So please share it if you've got any colleagues that you think are struggling with getting organized and setting goals and could use some suggestions, or anybody that you know who couldn't make it on our chat today. We appreciate your help in getting the word out. I did want to note that we've got our lineup going for this year. We've got our next 2 chats on the schedule. On February 20th, we have Lyle Orwig and Marcy Tessman from Charleston Orwig, and they're going to talk about sustainability. And more will be coming soon on that, but we've not chatted about that topic yet. So I'm excited for a new angle for our coffee and collaboration in February. And then on March 27th, save the date for Leah Mindeman and Mike Opperman, and they're going to talk about integrity, bringing editorial and sales together without crossing those lines. And so I'm kind of excited for that one, kind of a sales and editorial chat and how we can better work together. So we're working on ideas for the rest of the spring as well. And if you have ideas for some speakers that you think would be great, please don't hesitate to send them my way. I'll stick my email over in the chat. So feel free to contact us at any time. And with that, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I hope you have a wonderful day and a safe week.